Chapter 16. Kai. A pain in the ass does not even begin to describe this girl. She has me running through unfamiliar streets, stumbling over uneven cobblestones in the cramped darkness. My hand is coated in blood, pressed to the surprisingly shallow wound she offered as a parting gift. She had the chance to kill me, more than once, and yet, for all her talk of slitting my throat, she's failed to do it multiple times now. Then again, I failed to uphold my promise of bearing her own dagger in her back, though I blame that on the strict orders I have to keep her alive. I'm panting in the plague-forsaken heat that constantly envelops this city. I turn down an empty street, nearly running into one of my men before I signal for him to turn left while I take right. Even with the 12 of us split up, she's managed to evade every one of my men for nearly half an hour. A pain in the ass is an understatement. The moon stretches its pale fingers across the city, casting everything in a dull glow that has done nothing to help find her. If shadows are her friend, then the moon may be her accomplice, with its silver rays streaming through her blood to stain the hair that masks her in moonlight. I turn another corner, wincing at the wound on my arm. My feet pound against the uneven path like the thoughts racing through my mind. Her words echo in my head, stealing my focus from the streets I should be searching. I watched you kill him. 5 years. 5 years ago, I killed for the first time. 5 years ago, I plunged a sword through a man's chest for the first time. 5 years ago, I watched a man crumple to the floor before running from the first of my many crimes. 5 years ago, it was her father who was my first kill. How did she know this, and I didn't? Why was I sent to kill him in the first place? Maybe she's mistaken. Maybe she's looking for yet another reason to loathe me. I think back to that haunting night, the one that forced my fate upon me. I can almost see the room, the blood, the shakiness of my hands. The room. I nearly stumble when the realization crashes into me. Her house. The one I burned to the ground. That room I was standing in. That wasn't the first time I had been there. The pieces begin to fall into place, connecting that shadowy house where I had my first mission with the one illuminated by flames. It was me. I killed her father. Movement has my head jerking towards the shifting shadows. I know it's her even before I glimpse the figure darting across an alley. I have a throwing knife in hand, aimed at her before she can melt back into the darkness. Her scream is strained, as though she barely has the energy to express her pain. I take my time walking over to her, watching her slump against a grimy wall before sliding to the ground beneath. She's panting in pain, with a bloody hand pressed against the healing wound I've reopened on her thigh. "What?" she huffs. "Slicing my leg open once wasn't enough for you?" "Well," I sigh. "Apparently it wasn't enough for you, considering you're still trying to run away from me." "Get used to it." "Oh, I'm beginning to." Her head is slumped against the wall, eyes fluttering with fatigue. She looks tired, too tired, as though teetering on the edge of something more devastating than sleep deprivation. I tilt my head, examining her in the veiled darkness. "You feeling all right, little sidekick?" Her laugh is breathless. "You just cut me open with a knife. What do you think?" "Oh, come on, I barely grazed you." She pins those blistering blue eyes on me. "Yeah? You grazed a wound that's still healing. One you gave me in the first place, might I add." I almost smile. "You knew that was me, huh?" Of course it was you, she huffs. You're the only one with aim almost as good as mine. Almost, I say dryly. Really? You heard me, Prince? I see her fingers flinch towards the knife in her boot before I have her wrist clutched in my hand. Enough, I sigh. I'm tired. You're tired. Let's call it a night. Not to mention that you'll bleed out if you don't get that wound wrapped. If you think I'm going to go without a fight, I think. If you think I'm going to go without a fight, I think, I cut in while pulling the dagger from her boot, that you won't have any fight left if you don't get some rest and bandages. Isn't that what you want? Her voice cracks with the weight of accusation in it. To stop fighting you? Come quietly to my doom? I study her for a moment. Study the stubbornness sketched into the scowl she wears. The truth has my chest tightening, my heart heaving a sigh when my lungs cannot, because I can't seem to decide what's more frightening, watching her stop fighting or watching her die. What is she, without her fire fueling her? A shell of the silver savior she once was, the ghost of a girl I was willing to ruin myself for. If she fights for nothing, she lives for death. But if she burns for something, she lives for hope. I want her to fight me. I want her to burn for me, even if it means with hatred. I sigh, exhaling the emotions accompanying each dizzying thought, and instead say, where's the fun in that? This is ridiculous. Her mumble is muffled, and when I tug on the cloth covering her face, her gruff grumble is equally so. No, it's necessary. You look great. Try as I might, I can't keep the laughter from lacing each word. I can practically feel her glare through the scarf I wrapped around her head, partly to cover her highly recognizable hair and face, though mostly because I was far too lazy to fold the fabric correctly. I hate you, she hisses. Yep, you and everyone else in this kingdom, darling. The innkeeper waves a hand, beckoning me to his counter. I give her a little push forward, resulting in a reluctant limp. Just one room. We'll take whatever you've got, I say, offering a tight smile hidden behind the bandana covering the bottom half of my face. You're in luck, the man huffs. A room just opened up on the 3rd floor. Little thing. As a way of answering, I roll a few coins onto the chip's counter, watching as he counts them before giving me a gruff nod. Then his eyes land on the girl being swallowed by a scarf. What's wrong with her? I feel her shift in anticipation of some smart-ass comment about to spew from the mouth I can't currently see. Terrible accident, I cut in with a sad shake of my head. You don't want to see what's under there. I lean in, giving him a knowing look. She's a little self-conscious, rightfully so. The innkeeper nods, looking like we've just shared a hilarious joke. Then by all means, keep her covered up. He laughs. I laugh. I bite my tongue when the heel of her boot meets the toes inside mine. I know better than to laugh again as she blindly stumbles up the creaky stairs, blood dripping down her leg and threatening to splatter on the wood beneath. The door on the 3rd floor groans when I push it open, revealing a room the size of my closet back at the palace. With the bed taking up nearly the entirety of the space, the wash basin in the corner seems to be the only other accessory in the crude excuse for a room. A musty window sheds just enough dull light to display the grime decorating the space. I'm going to kill you. She's ripped the scarf from her face, huffing at the hair falling around it in a heap. Are you now? I muse. You had trouble with that even before you were injured. She turns away from me, shaking her head. Her voice is distant, as though the words were intended to remain a thought. I'm always injured, always a little broken. I watch her take in the room, if only because every response that comes to mind seems to be stuck in my throat. This is it? She asks, gesturing around. What? Are all your men going to pile into bed with you? Funny, I say without a hint of humor. No, my men will stay out in the city tonight. Such a large group draws unwanted attention. Don't worry, though. They'll meet up with us in the morning when we head out. She gives me a look that slightly resembles one of those sly smiles she used to show me. You really think you can handle me on your own? I shrug. I think I'm the only one who could handle you on their own. Still a cocky bastard, I see. I have a reputation to uphold. She snorts, struggling as she limps past me to slump onto the edge of the bed. I eye her bleeding wound and the quilt folded beneath it. By all means, please bloody the bed I'll be sleeping to the edge of the bed. I eye her bleeding wound and the quilt folded beneath it. By all means, please bloody the bed I'll be sleeping in. She barely spares me a glance. And what makes you so sure that you'll be sleeping in this bed? What makes you think I won't be? Ignoring me, she begins gingerly examining the wound on her thigh, completely content to disregard my existence. The sight of her rolling up the loose pant leg, revealing a tremendous amount of tan skin, seems suddenly more significant in the shadowy room. She hisses through her teeth when the fabric tugs at the sticky wound, and I watch her struggle to keep the pain from pinching her features. I run a hand through my hair, sighing out of quiet. Come here. I'm good, thanks, she says blandly. You're such a pain in my ass. You know that? If that's the case, she says sweetly, you could simply let me go. Problem solved. You and I both know that's not an option. Right. Her voice is harsh. Because your new king has you chasing me down. A handful of heartbeats pass before I say, well, you did kill his father, the king, and played a key role in the resistance uprising, not to mention that you used Kit to help do it. And I don't regret a thing. She looks me right in the eyes as she says it, not a trace of remorse reflected in her gaze. Everything I did, everything I fought for, was for Ilya. My jaw tightens. And that includes killing Ilya's king. She shakes her head, looking away from me. I didn't go into that trial planning to kill him when I came out of it. He came after me. There's something scarily similar to a plea in her eyes, not because she's begging forgiveness for what she did, but because she needs me to understand why she did it. But that doesn't mean I hadn't thought about driving a blade through his black heart a dozen times before. Even with the hatred coating each word, this is the most honesty I've received from her. I can hear it in the hoarseness of her voice, see it in the hands now trembling. Everything prior to this moment may have been fake, a facade, a fairy tale spun to lure me in. But starting right now, I've never seen anything realer. I sigh, content to let the silence stretch between us before grabbing the small wash basin from the floor. I'm not worried about leaving her alone while I trek downstairs to fill the bin with freezing water, not with the injuries that have her trying her hardest not to tremble in front of me. Water sloshes over the rim with each step back up the steep stairs, and after I push open the door with a damp boot, the girl slumped on the bed before me looks different than the one I left there. Her hair seems to bleed into the body beneath, blending with her very being now leached of all color. save for the crimson staining her trembling hands. She stares unseeingly at the blood coating her fingers, swallowing hard at the sight, shaking with each shallow breath. Something is very wrong with the Silver Savior, and I'm not supposed to care. I've seen trauma take on worse forms, seen it cripple courage, devour dreams, and spit out the shell of a person. Trauma and I were well acquainted. Come here. The command is softer this time, sympathy seeming to smother the sternness in my voice. Her eyes flick up to mine, unfocused and filled with panic. She blinks, her voice cracking as she begins. I can't. I don't need to know. I cut in quietly. Because I don't need to know what keeps her up at night, what haunts her dreams, what has her trembling like this. Because knowing that involves knowing her, and that's something I swore I wouldn't do again. She is the history I'm desperately trying not to repeat, and I failed enough at that for one night. I watch her swallow, watch her slide off the bed to sit beside me on the worn floorboards. She doesn't waste a moment before dunking her bloody fingers into the freezing water, scrubbing vigorously with numb hands. My eyes skim over her, using her distraction as a chance to let my gaze linger on the jagged scar down her neck. I don't bother asking, because I already know it was my father's doing. I can practically feel the exact amount of pressure he used to carve into her skin. But I say nothing of it, knowing that the wound likely runs far deeper than its physical form. The thought reminds me of just how careful I still am of her feelings. It's maddening. She's so entranced with the task of ridding herself of her own blood that I have to grab her wrists and reel her back to reality. Unless you're hoping to scrub your skin off, I think that's enough. With a slow nod, she's pulling her dripping hands from mine to wipe them on a crumpled shirt I pull from a borrowed Imperial's pack. Rolls of dingy bandages tumble to the floor when I shake them from the bag, frowning while fiddling to unravel one. Why are you doing this? She asks, voice hoarse. I don't look up at her. Well, I can't have you bleeding out on me, now can I? It's selfish, really. I don't want to have to carry you all the way home. She huffs half-heartedly at that. He has big plans for me then. Plans I need to be alive for. I'm quiet for a long time, taking my time cleaning the wound with a sopping bandage. The only sounds shared between us are the hushed hisses of pain and the steady drip of water. When I finally deign to respond, it's with the answer to a question she hasn't asked. I didn't know. Her gaze struggles to meet mine. Didn't know what? Your father. I didn't know. Not then, and certainly not until now. She stills beneath my touch. I take my time prepping her thigh for the bandage, swallowing as I gently push the thin pant leg higher. I quietly thank the plague when she finally speaks, giving me something to focus on other than my current task. Her voice is surprisingly soft, and I'm not sure whether to be alarmed or at ease. You didn't know who you killed that night? I bite back my bitter laugh. I didn't even know I would be killing anyone that night. Didn't know my fate was starting so soon. Don't be cryptic, she murmurs. Not when it comes to this. I sigh and slowly begin wrapping the bandage round her thigh. I was 14, right in the midst of my training with a king. I'd grown up knowing exactly what my future would look like, but that didn't mean there would ever come a time when I was ready to face it. She flinches when I tighten the bandage. When I woke up that day, I didn't know I'd be killing a defenseless man in cold blood. Didn't know my father would threaten to do the same to me if I didn't go through with it. He didn't. She swallows, taking a deep breath. I doubt the agony on her face has much to do with the wound I've now finished wrapping. He didn't tell you why you were killing him? I offer her a slight shake of my head. For the first 3 years of my missions, I was given no information on who I was killing. He'd called it blind obedience. Told me that the enforcer didn't need to know anything more. That the king's commands are never to be questioned. Her eyes flick between mine, burning like a blue flame. You could have been killing innocent people. You did kill innocent people. Chest heaving, she turns away from me, scoffing as she stares at the wall. And to what? Test your allegiance? Your willingness to blindly follow orders? My eyes never stray from her. I think you know that's exactly why. She shakes her head like I knew she would. It's a shock no one's thanking me for what I did. I stare at her, something constricting in my chest that might just be my heart. The thought of thanking her for driving a sword through my father's chest may be the cruelest thing I've ever considered. And yet, each scar scattering my body sings with the memory of cold hands and hot anger. Each one of my many masks a reminder of the man who molded them. Maybe I should be thanking her. I don't remember loving him when he was alive. But now, does death divulge deep-rooted devotion? I can't seem to differentiate grief out of love and guilt out of the lack thereof. She bites the inside of her cheek against a wince as she begins unrolling her pant leg. I suppose I should thank you. I study her, silence stretching between us. When she says nothing more, I raise my brows at her. I'm waiting. Don't get too excited. I said I should thank you. I harumph in a way that suggests I might have found that humorous, while she lifts her lips in a way that suggests she might be smiling. When she struggles to her feet, I follow, holding her stare from where she stands before me. Turn around, she orders. Excuse me? Turn around. I want to change. She waves her hands at me, signaling for me to obey. I don't know, I sigh, crossing my arms as I lean against the wall. How do I know you won't jump out the window when my back is turned? She grabs the borrowed, damp shirt with a scowl. The only thing I'm considering doing when your back is turned is shoving a dagger into it. You're not helping your case. The pack hits me square in the stomach before I catch it. Just turn round. She huffs, eyes flashing with challenge. I take my time, turning to stare blankly at the wall ahead. She doesn't bother making conversation, leaving me to listen to the rustling of clothes before they hit the floor. And now that I've had a taste of her lips, it's difficult not to crave them, especially when I know I shouldn't. So this certainly isn't helping. Can I turn around now? I ask with a sigh when the bed creaks behind me. Shh, I'm trying to sleep. I spin to see her sprawled atop the quilt, a stolen gray shirt swallowing her whole. With arms and legs stretched wide, she attempts to take up as much of the bed as possible. The sight is so unexpected that I nearly choke on a laugh. What is... Sorry, she says, her eyes closed and lips crooked. There's no more room on the bed. I can see that, I respond dryly. Her eyes fly open when I tug at the quilt she's toppled on. What are you... I'm compromising, I cut in. If you get the bed, then I at least get a blanket. Fine. She nods curtly from the flat pillow her hair is fanned messily atop. I snatch the other from beside her head, trying and failing to fluff the miserable excuse for a pillow. And I get this too. She shoots me a glance before curling onto her side and burrowing into the sheets. Deal. With that, I'm banished to the hard floor beside her bed. The quilt is scratchy, the floor is rough, and the pillow is practically pointless. But I've slept in worse conditions. Yet, I can't help but think that in another life, another time, another chance to choose each other, I would be in that bed beside her.
Chapter 17. Payton. I'm going to smother you with a pillow in about 5 seconds. I groan, blissfully ignoring the prince's threat and burrowing further into the rough sheets. This is the third and supposedly final warning he's willing to give me. With that in mind, I happily disregard the demanding enforcer beside the bed. When a lumpy pillow hits my face, muffling the string of curses spewing from my mouth, I raise a hand to show off my middle finger. He responds to my unspoken words with 2 of his own. Get up. If you're escorting me to my doom, I grumble beneath the crumpled cotton, the least you could do is let me enjoy my last time in a bed. You've had plenty of hours to enjoy, don't worry. I pry the pillow off my face, peering into the shadowy room. The cloudy window reveals an equally cloudy sky beyond, still splotched with darkness. The sun's not even up yet, so I don't see why I should be either. Compelling argument, he says dryly. Up. Now. I sigh through my nose, staring blankly up at the ceiling. I had planned to spend the night plotting my escape from the enforcer, but there was no fighting the wave of drowsiness that crashed over me the moment my head hit the pillow. Sleeping so soundly is scary when it's beside someone so willing to stab you in the back. Peeling myself from the worn sheets, I ungracefully slide from the bed before wincing at the forgotten wound on my thigh. Kai's eyes track the movement, trace the crease between my brow, the catch of my breath. How are you feeling? I scoff, pushing the stray strands of silver from my face. Don't pretend to care about my well-being, Prince. I'm just another mission for you to complete. He seems to stiffen slightly at that, but his words don't match the wariness he wears. Yes, and my mission needs to be well enough to endure the trek home. Home. The word stings my eyes, burns in my throat, just as the smoke had when I escaped the fiery fragments of my childhood. Each one of my homes is gone. My father, my Adina, my house on the corner of Merchant and Elm. I am homeless. Hopeless. Hollow. That's not my home. I hadn't meant for the words to be whispered, though he looks at me like I've screamed them. Ilya? He asks slowly. Ilya isn't your home? Nowhere is my home. No one is my home. Not anymore. I hold his gaze, raising my head high as I add, You and your king made sure of that. We stare at each other, his scrutiny sliding over my face. You're not the only one who knows loss. I have you to thank for that. As do I, he fires back. Have you forgotten that I'm now fatherless as well? Or did you not consider that when you drove a sword through the king's chest? You killed a father, I practically growl, stepping close enough to see the storm brewing in his gray eyes. I killed a monster. His eyes flick between mine, simmering with something I can't quite place. Have you forgotten everything he did to you? I whisper, pleading with him to remember the crimes of his childhood. Everything he made you do? Not to mention what he did to this kingdom? Enough! His voice cuts through my own, commanding and quiet. That's enough. What? Can't handle hearing the truth? He grabs my arm, his grip calloused like his next words. I said enough. We're leaving. With that, I'm fumbling for my pack before being pulled behind him down the narrow staircase. As we reach the bottom, I'm being roughly swaddled in my scarf, batting away the prince's swift hands as he wraps the fabric round my face and hair. As soon as his feet hit the creaky floor, he tosses a coin at the grumbling man behind the counter, not sparing him another glance before tugging me beyond the run-down inn. I blink in the blinding light of the rising sun, stumbling slightly as he steers me through the sea of people. The streets are flooded with merchants, drowning in mayhem. The enforcer weaves us through the crowd, his eyes flicking from face to face above the bandana covering the lower half of his face. I envy his ability to disguise himself so easily, what with his lack of identifiable hair. I wiggle my wrist in his grip, testing my many options to break his hold. "Don't even think about it," he murmurs, not slowing his stride. I roll my eyes at his back. He's increasingly insufferable. He turns us down a tight alleyway, pausing long enough to throw a glance at me over his shoulder. "You holding up back there?" "You ask as though you'd stop if I weren't." "You truly know me so well," he croons, pulling me down another bustling street. After several sharp turns, I'm slowing behind him, struggling to keep pace with his long strides. My leg burns, the dull pain growing into something far more demanding. He must hear my panting, feel my dragging feet, because he slips into a shaded side street and slows to a stop. "Out of shape, Gray?" I glare at him before directing my gaze to the gash across my leg. Yes, my pace has nothing to do with the fact that I'm actively bleeding out. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." His words are light, but his gaze is anything but as it travels down my body, finally landing on my thigh. And then he's suddenly crouching before me, hands braced on my leg. I can do nothing but blink at the bent head of messy black hair beneath me. He fiddles with the bandage peeking through the ripped pants atop it, fingers skimming my skin. "Are you really bleeding out on me, or just too stubborn to admit you need a break?" "Maybe," I grit out through a false smile. "I need a break because I'm bleeding out, which is because of you." He's distracted by my now exposed wound, offering me an amused, I wince when he dabs at the hot blood trailing down my leg in red rivulets. His touch is so gentle, so disguised with something akin to care. I swallow when his hands roam the sides of my thigh, silently reminding myself why I'm injured in the first place, why I'm running in the first place, why I'm so broken in the first place. Then his hands slide from my skin to tug at the bottom of his shirt, leaving me frustratingly cold in the shade. He rips a piece of cloth with ease before tugging my leg towards him to rest atop his own from where he kneels. I find myself committing the sight to memory with a smug smile. I feel anything but ordinary with the prince on his knees before me. "Hold still," he murmurs. "You're swaying like a drunk." I frown at the ebony hair tumbling over his brow. "You stole one of my legs." "Yes, a leg, not your balance." I shake my head at the wall I've planted a hand against. "You're insufferable." I catch the corner of his smirk as he ties off the new makeshift bandage and gently lifts my leg onto the ground. He stands, towering over me so suddenly that I find myself taking an unsure step back against the grimy wall. "Better?" he asks, noting my skittishness with the softening of his gaze. "Fine," I manage. "I'll make the trek to my doom, don't worry." His eyes roam over me, scrutinizing with a sense of uncertainty. "Then we best be on our way."
Chapter 18. Kit. Fresh air feels foreign to me. Standing beside the cracked window, I breathe in the cool unfamiliarity beginning to blow into the stuffy study. The grounds sprawled beneath me are blanketed in a vibrant bed of grass, glowing in the cascading sunlight. I don't stand here often. Don't open the curtains long enough to be perceived by the gossiping staff, but it's warranted after my meals. Tipping my half-eaten plate out the window, I watch the contents spill onto the grass far below. Each vegetable hits the ground with a soft plunk. potatoes, carrots, a stringy sort of bean I've come to dislike, all adding to the growing pile of scraps I've discarded. It's the part of my routine that needs refining. At first, it began as a way to clear my plate and appease the servants. Well, appease Gail with the proof that I digested her food. But as of late, the whispers outside my door have only grown louder before each delivered meal. Perhaps my pile of uneaten food has finally been found, and it's only a matter of time until Gail storms in here to spoon-feed me herself. A knock at the door has me assuming that day is upon me. "Come in." Running frantic fingers over my tousled hair, I attempt to smooth down the standing strands. My crumpled shirt is the next concern that captures my attention, but I'm barely able to run my hand down the fabric before the door swings open. Looking up, it's not Gail who meets my gaze. "There's my secluded cousin." The smile I muster surprises even myself. "Hello, Andy." She steps further into the study, her honey eyes sweeping over every inch of it. I clear my throat before stiffly sitting back into my seat. "Is there a reason for your visit?" Tearing her gaze from the open window, she allows it to settle on me. "Right. Well, I'm obviously here to fix your, She trails off, visibly attempting to concoct some sort of scheme. "Your window." She nods, trying to convince the both of us. "Yes, your window." "You're here to fix my window," I repeat slowly. "That's what I do." She gestures to the belt of tools around her waist, nose ring flashing in the light. "I know it's easy to forget that I'm still a handy around the castle, what with my many other talents." My eyes skim over the worn leather encircling her waist, every inch of it occupied by the heap of tools thrown haphazardly inside. I remember the days when the top of Andy's wine-red hair barely reached her father's hip, though she was practically attached to it, following him everywhere. So, naturally, he taught her everything she knows. The art of fixing, mending, creating. All part of a handy's role. Even despite the unique shifting ability running through her veins, she chose to pursue what most believe is a lowly passion. Plopping hands onto her hips, she sighs. "But someone needs to clean up after you and Kai, and I have plenty of experience with that." I nod along with each word, reminiscing on the many things we've broken during our impromptu brawls, back when we were just brothers, unburdened by these shiny new titles we now bear. Unable to stand the feel of her heavy scrutiny, I preoccupy myself with pretending to be busy. Shuffling papers in my hands, I attempt to straighten the scattered contents of my cluttered desk. "There's nothing wrong with my window, Andy. If you wanted to see me, you could have just asked." A sorrowful shadow shades her face. "And you would have let me? See you, that is?" Here we go. It was foolish of me to think I could avoid this conversation for much longer. Sighing, I offer, "I've been busy." "Right," she nods, her gaze distant. "You're a king now. You're my king now. I can't imagine how difficult it has been to adjust." A pause. "Especially after how it happened." "You mean how my father was brutally murdered? How I knelt beside his bloody body, staring at her dagger severing his neck? Is that what you meant to say, cousin?" I bite my tongue against the slew of spitting thoughts. "Yes. It has been difficult." "Jax misses you, and he's driving me insane, so feel free to take him off my hands." She says this with that bright smile of hers, despite the sadness clouding her gaze. "All right, fine. We both miss you. And I know you've been dealing with a lot lately, but it might be really good for you to get out of this study." "Andy?" I hold up an ink-splattered hand, silencing her with a single movement. "I'm fine here. Really. My words are so steady that I almost believe them myself. Andy stills, smiles, sets a quick pace towards the window. You know, she says with a familiar edge in her voice, I do think your window is broken, actually. I don't look up from the stack of papers piled before me. And why is that? I can hear the challenge in her voice. Well, food always seems to be falling from it. Silence falls, filled only by the drum of my fingers against the desk. Her arms are folded above her work belt when I turn to face her. She raises a scrutinous eyebrow. You want to explain this to me? I think about this for a moment. No, she scoffs. Come on. You're right. The window must be broken. Kit. King. She blinks at my correction, straightens at my suddenly stony complexion. It's King now. Things are different. I am different. Shaking my head, I whisper, He's gone. And I don't even know how to breathe if he doesn't command me to do so. Command me to eat? To live? My hands are shaking. Papers slide from their sloppy piles while unshed tears burn my tired eyes. Andy's face crumbles, pity pinching her burgundy brows. Oh, Kit. I stand stiffly before she has a chance to kneel at my side. Clearing my constricting throat, I murmur, That will be all, Andy. Kit, wait. That will be all. She stands, sucking in a breath. Let me help you fix the window. Please. It doesn't have to stay broken. I look at her then. Let her look at me. It's only when she's examined every crack in my calm facade that I say, I'm afraid it's beyond repair.
Chapter 19. Payton. Is this really necessary? I raise a brow at the coarse ropes currently constricting my wrists, rubbing them raw. By way of response, the enforcer smiles slightly in the shadows before tugging the ties impossibly tighter. I scoff, gesturing with bound hands to the barrenness surrounding us. Now you decide to tie me up? In the desert, with all your Imperials breathing down my neck? But the prince has already lost interest in me, turning to take the reins of one of the many restless horses. All of this for an ordinary? I raise my voice so the blanket of sand can't smother it. Who would have thought I'd have you so scared? I open my mouth again, ready to spit something else that will most definitely get his attention, when a shove at my back has me stumbling, biting the tongue that was about to get me into trouble. Bitch. It's a hiss in my ear, a shiver down my spine. The Imperial has my hair twisted in his fist before I've even found my footing, yanking me into his chest with a growl. I gasp at the pain, wince at the feel of his lips against my ear. Filthy ordinary. I should slit your throat right here. You know, I haven't even bothered to learn your name, soldier. That is how little I value your life. The enforcer's drawl has the Imperial stiffening behind me, straightening slightly when the prince takes his time strolling towards us. I stare at the broad chest looming before me, watching it rise rapidly, despite the deceptively calm words falling from his lips. So imagine, he says casually, what I would be more than happy to do to you if you ever lay another finger on her. It's a struggle to keep from stumbling into the enforcer with how forcefully the Imperial shoves me away from him. Then he's muttering a poor excuse for an apology, nodding to orders veiled as a threat. As soon as I find my footing, I'm staggering back from the prince and the callous scrutiny coating his face. That wasn't care or concern or anything close to kindness. No, it was possession. The threat was territorial. I am his prey, his prize, his prisoner. His and his alone. I hate it. I hate that I belong to him. Come here, I blink at that blunt order, the blatant disregard for the fact that I was ever anything more than his captive to control. His command has the opposite effect, forcing my feet further from him. He responds with a tilt of his head, eyes roaming over what must be the remaining disgust written across my face. "We're leaving," he says slowly, taking an equally slow step towards me. "If you'd prefer to walk across the desert, be my guest. Otherwise, I'm going to need you to get on a damn horse." My eyes flick to the snorting creatures scattering the sand. I swallow. "I'm good, thanks." Another step. "Is that so?" I'm shifting on my feet now. "I'd rather walk." "The Silver Savior," he's smiling. "Scared of horses?" Light laughter meets my ears, mocking me. I ignore the surrounding snickers and instead settle my gaze on the silently amused bastard before me. "Well, I was never privileged enough to ride one growing up, was I? So I think I'm allowed to find them unsettling." "We all have our fears, Gray," he murmurs, stepping closer for only me to hear. "Though I was beginning to believe you didn't have any. Least of all horses." "I'm not afraid," I say between the teeth I'm flashing at him. "Just in need of some exercise." I can barely make out the twitch of his lips in the darkness before he tethers my bound wrist to his horse with a long lead. "Try to keep up, Gray. I don't want to have to drag you across the desert." I roll my eyes at his back, but quickly avert them from the muscles straining against his shirt as he pulls himself up onto the saddle. At the sight, my mind wanders to the rooftop before I'm shaking my head and shoving the thought back down. It's not long until I'm stumbling beside him, trying to put as much distance as I can between myself and the beast looming beside me. The Imperials scattered around us are cast in shadow, draped in the darkness we waited to fall before setting foot in the desert. Spending my afternoon with the prince and his entourage was equally as miserable as the blanket of heat smothering us. That is, until the sun finally grew tired of its torture and sank into its bed of clouds, allowing the moon to guide us as we begin our trek across the desert. Time ticks by, indicated only by the ever-growing pain pulsing from my wound. Every step burns, scorching like the sun we managed to evade for a few hours. It's not long before a limp manages to slip into my stride, despite my best efforts to smother it. When he clears his throat beside me, I force myself to straighten, biting my tongue against the pain. "You're slowing down, Gray." His voice is quiet, gruff from hours of disuse. "Would you like me to run, Your Highness?" I manage, keeping my eyes on the shifting sand beneath my feet. "I'd like to see you try. It would be entertaining, to say the least." I throw him a glance. "I live to amuse, Your Highness." A cough catches in his throat, the closest to a laugh he'll allow himself. "Stop," he commands, pulling his horse to a halt. I stagger beside him, almost tempted to lean against the beast. The parade of Imperials pull on their reins, stopping to circle us. I watch the prince swing gracefully from his saddle before closing the distance between us. Swallowing, I trace the muscle that ticks in his jaw, the path his gaze trails down my body. And then he's crouching before me once again, looking up with hands braced on either side of my injured thigh. I ignore the prickle of a dozen prying eyes roaming over the scene we've created, unable to find a single reason to care. His eyes are on mine, and for a single bittersweet second, it's Kai I'm looking at, not the monster meant to hunt me down. Then his brow is furrowed, his mind captured by the task at hand. With swift fingers, he's tracing the jagged cut, threading skin and tissue together. I sigh, relief flooding me with every pass of his fingertips. He looks up at me then, eyes wandering over my face in a way that makes me feel stripped bare before him. "Better?" His voice is barely more than a murmur. "Better," I breathe. Tearing my eyes from his, I look up to scan the Imperials, silently wondering which of them is the healer he's drawing power from. "You couldn't have done that 12 hours ago?" The corners of his lips twitch. 12 hours ago, we were in a bustling city I knew you'd be able to easily disappear into. That is, if you managed to get away from me." He almost shrugs. "Call it a precaution." I mimic his shrug with one of my own. You seem to be taking a lot of precautions for a mere ordinary. I think we both know that nothing about you is mere. We watch each other for a long moment, wary in the way that we know we are supposed to be. Everything about him is sharp and cold, and piercing me with that glass-like gaze. Even crouched beneath me, he's every bit the prince and creation of the king, a puppet of the crown disguised with a fancy title. I wonder how often the enforcer kneels before anything. Anyone. You're afraid of me. He meets my statement with a stare, steady but drawn out like a sigh. I'd be a fool not to fear something so fierce. I swallow. And are you not? A fool, that is? He stands then, holding my gaze until he's the one looking down on me. Not anymore. I open my mouth, fumbling for words he doesn't care to hear. With a turn and a nod to his men, the parade lurches to life once again, dragging me along with it. I watch as he mounts his horse, glimpsing the glimmer of hope on his hip. My heart skips a beat, tripping over itself at the sight of a dagger decorating his side, though the lack of swirling steel on its hilt tells me it is not mine. I force my thoughts to be rational, force myself to think like the thief I had to become. Having maimed any chance for a morsel of trust, every move I make is annoyingly under suspicion. It's a struggle not to mourn how easy getting close to him used to be, and how desperately I crave something not completely complicated. I lurch forward with the huffing horse beside me, mind reeling and feet faltering. Plagues, I need a plan. The parade continues its melancholy march in the pale moonlight, little more than silver shadows painting the sand. Plan is a generous word for the idea that formulates, but desperation has me throwing caution to the wind. With a deep breath, I swallow my pride before forcing my feet to drag dramatically. The rope tethering me to the beast grows taut, my heels grinding into the sand. At first, the enforcer doesn't deign to acknowledge my obvious resistance, and the horse he's atop certainly doesn't either. But after several drawn-out sighs and stubborn steps, "What now, Gray?" He sounds utterly underwhelmed by my display. "I'm tired." "Is that so?" I scowl up at his shadowy shoulders. "It is." Hmm, I pant. "That's all you have to say? Fine." I can practically feel him smiling atop his high horse. It's a shame you're scared of horses." "I am not," I sigh, taking a deep breath to hide my smile. This is exactly what I wanted. "I'll get over it. I'm too tired to care at the moment." Now he offers a glance over his shoulder. "Let's see it then. Get on." I swallow, a reaction that I wish was dramatized. He extends a hand to help me, his mouth kicking up at the corner. "Absolutely not." I try to take a step back, straining against the rope. "I'm going to need assistance." Now he really does smile. "You mean you need help?" "I am asking nothing of the sort." He shakes his head at me. "Still too stubborn to admit you're asking for help, let alone that you need it." I roll my eyes, looking anywhere but into his. "Go on, Gray. I want to hear you say it." I shake my head, tilting it towards the stars staring down on us. "You're insufferable." "That's not quite what I'm waiting to hear." A noise of disgust slips between my lips, a groan sounding of regret. "Fine. I need your help." I bite out the words, swallowing the bitter taste they leave behind. He smiles at me then, startling in a way it shouldn't be, not anymore. In response, he easily slips from his saddle to stand before me. My heart hammers in my chest, eyes flicking to the weapon at his side. I hold out my bound hands expectantly, smiling sweetly at him. He watches me, his piercing eyes gliding over my face. "One wrong move, Gray," he murmurs, "and I'll bind you to the back of this horse. Understood?" "Understood, Prince." He meets my mocking with a hint of a grin, and then he's cutting me free with the knife I so desperately want in my palm. I don't dare track his movements as he slides the small dagger back onto his hip, instead keeping my eyes locked on his. My wrists are red and raw, sore from hours of strain. I take my time massaging them, running fingers over the growing welts there until I'm sure his thoughts are far from the knife at his side. Time for a distraction. Lifting my eyes to his, I take one last deep breath in preparation for the lack of plan I've conjured. All right, I sigh. Get me up there. His smile is far too teasing for my liking. All right, then. He steps behind me, his hands hard on my hips before I can suck in another breath, sure and strong and sickeningly familiar. And then he's lifting me up, up, up. Plagues! I squeal, thrashing in his hold like I intended to. Every limb is flailing, desperate to flee from his grip out of what I hope looks like fear. My back is pressed against his chest, while feet fly in front of me and hands reach behind to grasp at anything, his face, his arms, his hip, as I slip the dagger from its sheath. What the hell is wrong with you? He lowers me back onto solid ground, dodging an elbow I throw back in his direction. As soon as my boots hit the sand, I turn and stumble against him, reaching the hand holding his knife behind my back. Unable to risk tucking the weapon into the band of my pants where he will likely feel it, I flip the blade so its handle faces downward and silently say a prayer to plague knows who. Only then do I let the knife drop towards the mouth of my boot. I bite my tongue against the sting of pain, feeling blood begin to prickle my skin where the blade nicked my ankle. But then I'm biting my tongue against a smile. I did it. It worked. Maybe I should pray more. I wasn't ready, I pant, taking a step away before smoothing out my rumpled shirt. Oh, I'm sorry, he mocks, exasperated. I just assumed that get me up there implied that you were ready to get up there. I glance up at the men around us, hidden in shadows. The blanket of darkness is the only reason I was able to get away with the sloppy stunt I just pulled without anyone seeing. I'm just nervous, okay? Give me a second. Take your time, he grinds out between clenched teeth, not meaning a single word. I look away from the agitation so blatantly displayed across his face. Taking a deep breath, I play the part of the anxious captive, complete with fidgeting fingers and shifting feet. All right, I finally say. All right, what? He asks slowly. I want to hear you say it, so I don't get ambushed again. I offer him a dull look. All right, I'm ready. You sure about that? Should I expect a black eye or just get me on the damn horse, Azzer? He takes a slow step behind me then, holding my gaze while sliding rough palms onto my hips. I swallow at the sheer intimacy of a moment that is intended to be nothing of the sort. He's lifting me onto the horse that's carrying me to my doom for plague's sake. And yet, my cheeks are heating in the middle of a sunless desert. And I hate it. Hate him. Right? He pulls me close, holds me like a breath, knowing it's only a matter of time before he needs to let me go. Then he's lifting me, guiding my foot into a stirrup. I swing my other leg over the beast, shaky and slow. I'm clutching the saddle, every muscle taut, and ready to throw myself off if needs be. But right as I'm considering doing just that, he's suddenly behind me, solid and pressed against my spine. I think, I say quietly, I'd be more comfortable in the back. Oh, I'm sure, he murmurs, so close to my ear I suppress a shiver. But I want you where I can see you. He reaches around me then, forearms framing my waist as he grips the reins. I roll my eyes at where his hands rest on my thighs. Is this really necessary? What, you know how to steer a horse? I lean slightly against his chest. I'm a fast learner. He huffs, stirring my hair. Yes, a fast learner that would head straight back to door. You think so little of me, Highness. A laugh. No, I think so often of you, which is why I know exactly what you would do. I swallow, slouching as I let the silence settle over us. Minutes tick by, tempting me to talk, if only out of boredom. What will he do to me? He's tucked so closely behind that I can feel his body tense when the question slips from my mouth. I suddenly have the prince shifting uncomfortably, sighing onto the back of my neck. I've tried not to think of Kit, of how I may have helped mold him into a replica of the king I drove a sword through. Kai starts, ducking his head. I'm not sure. What is he like? I say softly. My king? He's like you left him. His voice is dull. A shell of a man, stepping into the shoes of a king. I sigh, looking up at the stars above. Then I'm as good as dead.